My wife was cheating on me with several men. When I hired a detective and found out how many there really were, I called the police and she was arrested. I first encountered Vanessa in 10th grade, and by 11th grade, we were officially a couple. We cruised through high school without any major issues, and in a classic moment, we lost our virginity to each other on homecoming night. Discovering the intimacy between us, we seized every chance to be close. Marriage discussions began in the 12th grade, but we agreed to wait until we completed university before getting married. University, however, brought a change in Vanessa. In high school, everyone knew about our relationship, so guys left her alone. But in college, it was different. Most of the students were new, and they saw her as a desirable girl, showering her with attention. I knew what was happening, but there wasn't much I could do. We had different majors and classes, so we only saw each other in the evenings after classes and after I finished work. Vanessa became more flirtatious with all the attention. I often saw her walking, smiling, and talking with other guys, though she never noticed me watching from the other side of the campus. Twice, while cutting through the student center, I saw her in the cafeteria with a guy, and once with two of them. It never hit me until much later that she was never with other girls, always guys. Still, I didn't worry. We were in love and planning to get married, so there was nothing to fret about. She was naturally attractive, drawing attention from guys, but she was mine, proving it every night when we were together. Years went by after graduating, finding jobs in our respective fields, getting married, and starting a supposedly blissful life together. I enjoyed almost 6 years of contentment before a sudden revelation shook me. While at my desk, Eliza from the mailroom dropped some files in my basket. As I looked over the top one, I wondered why it had been routed to me, since it was about an account handled by Wilson Beckett, an old classmate from high school and college. Halfway through, I noticed a major error. The projections were off by almost 2 million. Just as I reached for my calculator, Wilson rushed into my office, urgently needing the file for a presentation to Apex. I showed him the mistake, and he was visibly worried. He said he needed to fix it quickly to avoid any problems, then took the file and left in a hurry. That Thursday, since Vanessa always worked late finalizing payroll for Friday's payday, I stuck to my routine. I went to Tony's bar after work for his half-pound ground round and a couple of beers before heading home. As I finished my burger and started my second beer, Wilson walked in, saw me, and joined me in my booth. He ordered a beer and asked Lily to bring me the bill, saying it was a thank you for helping him save his job earlier. I accepted without fuss, considering it wasn't much. We talked about work, people we knew, and recent events. Then Wilson brought up something delicate. He told me I was a nice guy and wondered why I put up with Vanessa's behavior. I was confused and asked what he meant. He persisted, asking why I tolerated the way Vanessa acted. My puzzled look must have told him I had no clue what he was talking about. As he tried to leave, I stopped him, insisting he explained further. Wilson reluctantly stayed and revealed something that left me stunned. He couldn't believe I hadn't known about Vanessa's reputation for the past 10 years. When I asked him to clarify, he confessed that Vanessa had been known for her questionable behavior since high school and admitted his involvement with her. Shocked, I demanded he tell me everything without holding back. 2 weeks after senior prom, Wilson had walked into his cousin Harry's house to find Harry and Vanessa together. Neither of them objected when he saw them, so he waited his turn. They took turns with her until Vanessa had to clean up before meeting me after my part-time job at Walker's Market. Wilson and Harry kept seeing her whenever I was at work. When Harry got serious with Amy Monroe, Vanessa was with Wilson for a while before he found her with Thomas Richards and Oliver Pratt. Wilson joined them, and the three of them continued until she had to stop for our meetings. Wilson shared her with several others, and she had group encounters with more than half a dozen guys. I realized that while Wilson and I were friends, we weren't best friends. At 18, with raging hormones, he didn't think my relationship with Vanessa was that serious. If it were, why would she be with anyone who showed interest? College didn't change her pattern. As a freshman, Vanessa had classes Monday through Thursday and Tuesday through Friday, with no classes on Wednesday. Her last class on weekdays ended at 3 or 2, I can't recall. My schedule had me going to work after classes. When Vanessa finished class, she headed to someone's bedroom. Wednesdays turned into an all-day event. While our class schedules varied, the constant was Vanessa engaging in these activities after class until I finished work. I might make it sound like it happened every day, but it was 2 or 3 times a week. Although most of our friends were shocked when Vanessa and I tied the knot, they assumed I must have known what she was up to and chose to marry her anyway. Some folks thought maybe I was into the idea of my wife being with other men. Chase even speculated that perhaps Vanessa and I had some sort of unconventional arrangement, but nobody ever saw me with another girl. Vanessa, on the other hand, was often seen with other guys. I had no clue, not a single hint. Damn, John, I hate to be the one to break this to you, but if you didn't know back then, you probably don't know about her Thursday night dates with Max and Luke Howard. And on the Tuesdays when you go bowling, she sees Ethan Clark. I'm not sure who else she's seeing or when, but it's clear that whenever you're occupied, so is Vanessa. It might not matter much now, but I stopped being involved with her after you got married. A single woman is one thing, but fooling around with a married woman is a whole different story. I didn't know what to say, John, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm definitely going to take some action. I finished my beer, stood up to leave, and turned to Wilson. Thanks, Wilson. Thanks for the burger, the beer, and for shedding some light on things. As I drove home, mulling over Wilson's revelations, I found myself questioning whether to believe him. Part of me thought, no way, Vanessa loves me and she wouldn't betray me. But another part of me asked, why would Wilson lie? I had to face the reality that he wouldn't. He knew I'd verify what he told me, and if he had lied, we couldn't continue working together. The answer was we couldn't, and Wilson knew it. Working with him, knowing what I now knew about him and Vanessa, would be difficult, but we'd eventually get through it. I remembered those teenage years with hormones running wild. If some other girl had offered back then and I didn't have Vanessa, I might have taken it, but the real question now was, what do I do, John? I didn't know that Vanessa and I were finished. I might have been able to forgive a one-night drunken mistake or maybe even a short-term affair if Vanessa could convince me it wouldn't happen again, but 10 years of outright betrayal? No way. I lay in bed pretending to be asleep when Vanessa returned from work. I ignored her touch when she reached out, wanting to give me some leftovers, but I wasn't interested. Admittedly, I'd been receiving them for years without realizing it, but now I knew. Her hand on my body made my skin crawl, and for the first time, I didn't feel a thing when Vanessa touched me. I was already up before Vanessa the next morning, with coffee brewing and the morning paper in hand. Vanessa asked what happened the previous night since she came home eager, and I was already in bed. She remarked that my behavior was unusual. I explained that I felt unwell because something I ate disagreed with me, so I decided to go to bed early. Vanessa expressed hope for my recovery and mentioned it'd have to make up for the missed night tonight. When I got to work, I immediately called Luke, an old high school friend who now practiced corporate law. Though I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, I asked him for recommendations for a tough divorce lawyer. His reaction told me that my worst fears were true. Discovering that I was looking for a divorce lawyer meant I had finally learned the truth about Vanessa. He then asked if I thought we had an open marriage, assuming that was the only way Vanessa could do what she did and still stay with me. Surprisingly, Luke, I had no idea about her actions until yesterday. After a brief silence, Luke suggested I contact Grant Foster and mention his referral. I followed his advice and called Foster, explaining that Luke had recommended him. Foster said he could meet later that day if I could come by at 1. I agreed and showed up as planned. Foster laid out my options, ranging from an amicable separation to a full-on scorched earth approach. In our state, which wasn't a no-fault state, infidelity was a legitimate ground for divorce. But to get a divorce based on infidelity, I needed solid, undeniable evidence. Hearsay wouldn't cut it. I asked how to gather the necessary proof, and Foster handed me a card for Everett Sterling, a private investigator whose office was right across the street. Foster offered to contact Sterling to see if he could fit me in right away. I told him to go ahead, expressing my urgency to wrap this up quickly. I also instructed him to start the divorce paperwork, promising to provide the evidence once I had it. Foster made the call, and within 10 minutes, Everett Sterling had a plan ready. Unfortunately, one of the requirements was for me to act completely normal around Vanessa, so she wouldn't suspect anything. As unpleasant as it may be, Sterling advised, stick to your routine. If you usually have intimate moments 3 or 4 times a week, keep it up. Whether you initiate or not, just do it. Remember, it's not about making love anymore, it's about fulfilling a physical need. Don't do anything to disrupt her routine. It's crucial for our plan that she doesn't sense any changes in your behavior. Back at my office, I gathered my courage and called Vanessa at work. We had a tradition of dining out every Friday night and having breakfast every Sunday morning. So when I reached her on the phone, I suggested Tony's for dinner, and she agreed. While I enjoyed my veal, Marsala and Vanessa worked on her rigatoni, sipping white wine. Employees from Sterling Investigations were discreetly installing wireless cameras and listening devices in our house. Sipping my Merlot, I recalled Sterling's advice. It's natural to want to find the hidden cameras, but resist the urge. If she catches you, all our efforts could be wasted. Also, force yourself to act natural in the bedroom. It's challenging unless you're a natural exhibitionist. The system is motion activated, so you'll be on camera. Knowing some employees might see you, don't let it hold you back. Sterling advised, there's a switch at home to turn off the system, but most people forget to turn it back on. My advice, leave the system alone and act as if you're confident and in control. After dinner, while making a private video, I suggested to Vanessa that we go for drinks and maybe some dancing. She declined, insisting we head home so I could make up for disappointing her the night before. On the drive home, she slid over, unzipped my pants, and warned, "Drive carefully, sweetie. Don't crash and make me bite off your meat." What she was doing didn't feel special to me anymore. It felt like something she had done with countless men over the past 10 years. Despite my disgust, my body responded, and a few minutes into the act, I wanted her to continue. Soon after, I pulled into our driveway, and Vanessa urged me to hurry up to the bedroom. There was no way I could act natural, knowing I might be on camera, performing for an audience. So I went to the switch location and turned the system off, leaving my cell phone on the car seat as a reminder to reactivate it later. I don't know if Vanessa noticed, but that night wasn't about love. It was just going through the motions. Unfortunately, once wasn't enough, and I had to perform twice more before Vanessa let me sleep. The next morning, dressed for my run, Vanessa reminded me she wouldn't be home when I returned, citing a long hair appointment from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. She mentioned gossiping with other regulars and usually going to lunch with them. It could have been true, but after what I'd learned, I figured she was meeting one of her lovers either before or after getting her hair done. As I left, I turned the system back on. I doubted anything would happen during my run, but I needed to make it a habit to ensure the system was active whenever I wasn't home. The switch only deactivated the cameras, the listening devices, and phone tap remained on. After my usual 5-mile run, I returned home and went down to the basement, opening the cabinet above my workbench where Sterling had placed the recorders. Inside were 2 receivers, one for the listening devices and phone tap, the other a DVD recorder receiving input from the wireless cameras. Confirming my suspicions, I heard a recorded conversation. "Hello, good morning. Are we still on for today?" "You bet. The wife took the kids to the zoo, so we have until 6 tonight. You know I can't stay that long. I need to be home by 2. Any later, and Jack will start wondering. He's already questioned why I don't get home until 2. Then skip the hair appointment and get over here so we can make it happen." "Yeah, sure." "Then what do I tell Jack when he asks why I've been gone so long and my hair's not done?" "I want more time with you too, baby, but we have to settle for what we can get." I recognized the man's voice. It was my cousin Sam. Furious, I went back upstairs, wondering how many other relatives she had been involved with. I managed to control my anger by the time Vanessa returned from her hair appointment. An hour later, I faked a fall down the basement stairs, telling her I had hurt my back, probably pulled a muscle or something. This conveniently excused me from being intimate with her for the next few days at least. On Monday, I called Vanessa at work and told her that I would be leaving town on Tuesday and returning by Friday to take her out to dinner. Although there was no actual trip planned, I didn't see it as wasted time. On average, I traveled once a month, and Vanessa was always home during my nightly check-ins and phone calls. Since my calls happened at irregular times between 7 and 10 p.m., I doubted she waited for them before going out. If she was cheating, as I now believed, she might be doing it in our bed while I was on the phone with her. That was my hope. If she was, and the cameras caught it, I'd have the undeniable proof my lawyer needed for the divorce. That evening, Vanessa expressed a need for closeness, saying, "I need something to hold me over for the 3 nights you'll be gone." Yeah, right, I thought. Fortunately, my back was still hurting, so I had to decline. On Tuesday morning, Vanessa kissed me goodbye, and with a suitcase in hand, I left for my supposed business trip. I worked almost a full day before leaving at 3, then drove to our neighborhood, parked a block from the house, and used my laptop to activate the software Sterling had installed. A few keystrokes later, I was listening to the phone line recorder. "Hello, hey handsome, it's me, what's up? Hubby just left on a 3-day trip. Ready to spend 3 fun-filled nights with me? Does a duck walk barefoot on the beach? I'll take that as a yes. I'll call Liam. I've got to get out of here and get to work. I'll be home by 6. See you then." After shutting down the computer, I called Grant Foster and told him to have the papers ready for service by Thursday, detailing how I wanted it done. He informed me that my preferred method would cost more than the standard service fee, to which I replied that I didn't care. Leaving the neighborhood, I drove to the other side of town and checked into a motel with a restaurant and bar next door. Settling in for a 3-day stay, I enjoyed the bar. It was my kind of place. It brought a big smile to my face every time I visited. It was a country western bar with a jukebox full of great dance tunes. Every night, I saw 3 or 4 single ladies who couldn't stand seeing a man sitting alone while there was music to dance to. On my first visit, while sitting at the bar nursing a beer, a stunning redhead approached me and said, "Come on, sugar, they're playing our song." She took my hand, pulled me off the bar stool, and led me onto the dance floor. As we swayed, she added, "Don't get the wrong idea, sugar. I'm not looking for anything more. I just love to dance, and you were here." Her name was Jenna, and after our dance, she invited me to join her and her friends Emma and Kate at their table. I spent the evening dancing with them until about 10:30, then told them I had to call it a night. "Maybe we'll see you again," Jenna said. "We're here a few nights a week." I told her it was likely, as I was staying at the motel next door and would probably return the next couple of nights. For the first time since my conversation with Wilson, I felt a glimmer of positivity as I went to bed. The next afternoon, around 3, I parked a block away from the house and reviewed the footage from the previous night. The 2 men who joined Vanessa in the bedroom were noticeably younger, at least 6 years her junior. It made me wonder if she was seeking youthful excitement. The content itself was unremarkable, just straightforward lovemaking. While the visual of Vanessa with 2 men didn't particularly captivate me, the audio was what truly intrigued me. Surprisingly, she didn't criticize my skills, which I had expected. Wednesday passed without incident, with my presence acknowledged only when one of the men mentioned wanting more frequent meetings. Vanessa clarified that I was her priority. However, I overheard her instructing them to leave by 6 a.m. on both Wednesday and Thursday, emphasizing the need to avoid being seen by neighbors who weren't early risers. They left precisely at 6, and I assumed the same would happen on Friday. I called my attorney and had him change the serving of the papers to Friday at 5:45 a.m. Friday morning. I parked just down the street from the house at 5:55. When the front door opened, the 2 men came out. They turned to say goodbye to Vanessa, who stood in the doorway. That's when they noticed the man standing just off to the side. He stepped forward, served Vanessa with the papers, and then walked away, leaving her and her companions stunned. I pulled up in front of the house, honked the horn to get Vanessa's attention, waved goodbye, and drove off. The papers served on Vanessa included a letter from me, making it clear I never wanted to speak to her again, unless it was through our attorneys. I didn't want to know why she did it, didn't want to hear any declarations of love, or that it was just meaningless sex with others. I didn't want to hear any excuses. I didn't want to hear that we could work through this because of our love. I didn't want to hear any of the typical excuses cheaters use when caught. Of course, Vanessa ignored the letter, and 15 minutes after I left the house, my cell rang. It was Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail, along with the next 7 calls from her. When I got to work, I informed my secretary that I had left Vanessa and not to put through any calls from her. As I was opening my office door, another thought struck me. Nora, if she shows up here, please tell her I'm not here. Say I've gone to meet a customer. Nora nodded and stuck her head in the door 5 minutes later. I talked to Cora at the front desk. If your wife shows up, she will call me and stall her to give you time to get out the side door. You can go to the cafe and have coffee until she leaves. I thanked her, realizing once again that a good secretary is invaluable. Vanessa called me 17 times that day, and I ignored all the calls. At lunchtime, I phoned my dad and brother, updating them on the situation. I asked Dad to inform Mom and to make sure she didn't try to persuade me to reconcile with Vanessa. He mentioned it would be difficult since Mom saw Vanessa as the daughter she never had. By the end of the day, I still had some pending work. With no rush to go home, I decided to stay and finish it. By 5, Nora informed me before leaving. By the way, your wife called 5 times before noon, and each time I told her I had instructions not to put her through. I think she finally got the message since she hasn't called since. I finished around 7. Upon reaching the lobby, Cora was gone, but Clay, our night watchman, saw me and commented, "Hot date tonight with the missus?" "Why do you think that?" I asked. "She's out there waiting for you." "We're getting a divorce, Clay. She wants to talk, and I don't. Don't open the door if she knocks, and if she uses the intercom, tell her you're alone in the building. My car's in the lot because of a breakdown, and a tow truck will come in the morning." Clay assured me he could handle it, expressing sympathy for the situation and sharing that he had been through 2 divorces himself. Exiting through the back door, I circled the block, crossed the street, and walked down the alley to Benny's diner. I entered and took a seat, where I could see Vanessa waiting by my car. I ordered the special and kept an eye on her while eating. Halfway through dessert, she approached the building and pressed the call button on the intercom. Apparently, Clay conveyed my message as she returned to her car and left. After finishing dessert and having one more cup of coffee, I departed. I briefly stopped in the bar for a couple of beers. Despite a few women there alone hoping for a dance partner, I had my 2 beers and left. Saturday morning was busy as I attended to tasks I should have completed before serving Vanessa. I hoped I wasn't too late and she hadn't taken action on what I should have done. I went to the bank, emptied all the accounts, and retrieved my personal papers and certificates of deposit from the safe deposit box, leaving Vanessa's belongings untouched. I removed my wedding ring and placed it in the box for her to discover. Afterward, I had breakfast at the Waffle House using my cell phone to handle the credit cards. I canceled both joint cards, leaving me with a Visa and an American Express solely in my name. Vanessa also had 2 cards in her name only, so I ensured she couldn't run up joint cards with cash advances. After breakfast, I returned to the motel, parked my car, and called a cab to take me to the nearest rental place. I rented the cheapest car I could find and made my way back to the motel. That afternoon, I lounged by the pool, losing myself in a book. Just before dinner, I turned on my phone and saw 9 messages from Vanessa. I deleted them all, without listening, and turned the phone off again. After a light meal, I headed to the bar, which had a live band on Fridays and Saturdays, attracting a decent crowd. I found a seat at the bar and ordered a beer. As I took a sip, I felt a tug on my shirt. I turned around and saw Jenna standing there. "Hey, cowboy, why are you sitting here alone when there's a seat at our table for you?" she asked. "Honestly, if I had seen you, I wouldn't have wanted to intrude." "It would have felt presumptuous," I replied. "Nonsense, come on," she insisted. I got up and followed her to their table, where Emma and Kate were already seated. I greeted them and said, "This seems odd. 3 beautiful women sitting here alone and not swarmed by guys." Emma rolled her eyes. "We get plenty of attention, but it's usually from idiots who assume we're here to cheat. We're just here to dance, and only a few guys get that and respect it. Most think they're God's gift to women, and we have to fend them off. After the other night, we know you're one of the good ones. You have an open invitation to join us whenever we're here." I nodded. "It's not really my business, but why are 3 gorgeous married women spending time here without your husbands?" Jenna sighed. "Emma's husband is in the Army Reserve and got sent to Afghanistan. She was going crazy at home, so we decided to get her out. Kate's husband works nights, and my husband is a long-haul trucker who's off and away. The 3 of us stick together to keep each other company. We love to dance, so here we are." "And what's your story?" Kate asked. "Last time we saw you, you had a ring on, and now it's gone. I handed my wife divorce papers yesterday morning and left the ring for her to find," I explained. "Does that mean you're free to pursue?" Emma asked with a grin. "Not at all. The grounds were infidelity, and I won't give her any reason to use something against me in a countersuit," I replied. "Great," Kate remarked. "We have a reliable dancing partner." The rest of the evening, I danced with the 3 of them until closing time, occasionally sharing them with other guys. We agreed to meet up again on Sunday. I spent a quiet day by the pool with a book, and on Monday, I drove the rental car to work, hoping Vanessa wouldn't see it and think I was out of town again. The week passed with 6 to 10 calls daily from Vanessa, which I never answered. She tried calling from unfamiliar numbers a few times, but as soon as I heard her voice, I hung up. Each night after dinner, I stopped by the bar for a beer or two. Jenna, Emma, and Kate were there on Wednesday and Friday, so I joined them, dancing until 10 on Wednesday and until closing on Friday. By Saturday, I figured Vanessa would realize I wasn't going to talk to her, so I turned in the rental car and drove my own car to work on Monday. That was a mistake. Monday evening, she was parked next to my car when I left the building. Spotting me, she got out and stood by my driver's side door. "We need to talk," she said, but I didn't respond. As I approached the car, she moved to block the door, insisting that I let her explain. I pushed her aside, causing her to stumble, but quickly regain her balance. I rolled down the window and told her to read the letter accompanying the divorce papers. I stated that I wouldn't engage in any conversation without my attorney present, and that any discussion would strictly concern the divorce. Vanessa expressed her unwillingness to divorce and her lack of desire to be without me. I reiterated that our relationship was over, and that she needed to accept it because I wouldn't change my mind. After rolling up the window, I drove away, leaving her behind. Vanessa's refusal to accept my decision became apparent on Tuesday. When I left work, 2 men approached my car and grabbed my arms. I recognized them as the individuals who had been with Vanessa in our bedroom. One of them warned me not to resist, stating that Vanessa wanted to talk, and since I was being difficult, they would take me to her by any means necessary. Though only a few years older, they must have thought I was soft due to my suit and briefcase. I figured I could handle them. They wouldn't expect an old guy to resist, so I could catch them off guard. Either way, the commotion would draw attention, and their kidnapping plan would fail. But then I pondered, do I truly desire this? If Vanessa was willing to go to such lengths just to reach me, what might she attempt next if I sent these two back to her battered and bruised? They nudged me into my car, and I sat between them, my briefcase on my lap. As they drove to the house, they escorted me inside, and Vanessa instructed them to seat me in a chair and ensure I stayed there. She turned to me and announced that we wouldn't be getting a divorce. As I attempted to rise from the chair, the 2 men pushed me back down and restrained me. One of them warned me to stay still. Vanessa declared that we would remain married, but that there would be changes in our lifestyle due to her medical issue, which I had discovered. She expressed regret that I had found out about it, but insisted that I had to accept it now that I knew. She then confessed her love for me, asserting that she wouldn't let me go. She revealed that her medical issue was nymphomania, which she had suffered from since high school. Vanessa attributed the onset of her condition to when I took her purity. I dismissed her statement, suggesting that there were medications available to address her condition. She acknowledged that such medications existed, but explained that she had tried them all. She found them ineffective as they made her feel sluggish and dull, likening the experience to being a zombie. Despite this, she admitted that she enjoyed being a nymphomaniac and emphasized her love for closeness, asserting that she hardly ever left me alone. Vanessa argued that her actions hadn't harmed me, insisting that she spoiled me. She reasoned that since I couldn't maintain an arousal constantly, she needed to seek it elsewhere, but assured me that she always returned because she loved me. She then outlined her terms, revealing she had drafted a post-nuptial agreement allowing her to have as many lovers as necessary for her mental well-being. She proposed that if I later found the conditions unacceptable, I would agree to leave the marriage with nothing. I asked what she expected to gain besides a promiscuous wife. Vanessa responded by promising I'd continue to have the same loving partner I'd had for the past 6 years. She reminded me that she had considered those years perfect, despite the current issue being my bruised ego over someone else being involved in what I had always thought was mine alone. She urged me to accept that our life would go on as it had. Vanessa emphasized that my inability to meet her physical needs didn't mean I wasn't man enough for her. She praised me as a fantastic lover, who always left her satisfied, but admitted I couldn't satisfy her as often as she needed. Using her full name, which I knew she disliked, I reluctantly agreed to sign the agreement with a few amendments. I voiced my concerns about our lack of closeness and expressed my need for her presence in our bed. Despite my plea and reassurance of my love, she remained unwavering in her stance. With a heavy heart, I accepted her offer, hoping it might salvage some part of our crumbling relationship. As I tried to rise from my chair, her 2 thugs blocked my way, making me feel trapped and powerless. When I mentioned needing to use the bathroom, one of them callously suggested I relieve myself where I sat. citing Vanessa's directive to keep me seated until further notice. Vanessa returned after 5 minutes, read the document aloud, and I asked where to sign. She offered me a pen, but I mentioned her associates preventing me from standing. Instructing them to let me up, I approached her, placed my briefcase on the table, and took the pen. However, I decided to review the document myself to ensure it matched her description. After reading it, I chuckled, tore it up, and tossed the pieces at her. I grabbed my briefcase and headed for the door. Vanessa yelled to stop me, and her 2 goons pursued. As they neared, I swiftly turned and struck the first guy's head with my briefcase. It was a solid hit, sending him down. The second guy was taken off guard, and I punched him in the mouth, causing him to stagger backward. Then I delivered a forceful kick to his groin, and he collapsed. Understanding the need to keep them subdued, I continued to strike both of them, alternating between kicking them in sensitive areas and striking their ribs and heads. Vanessa screamed for me to stop or shed shoot. Glancing at her, I noticed she was aiming a weapon at me. Defiantly, I challenged her to shoot. I retrieved my cell phone, dialed emergency, provided my name and address, and informed the operator of my wife's armed threat. The operator advised me to remain calm and not provoke her, assuring me help was on the way. After ending the call, I sarcastically thanked Vanessa, suggesting her incarceration would expedite our divorce. She criticized my action as foolish and warned me that when the police arrived, I would be the one facing arrest. Vanessa accused me of entering and attacking her friends out of jealousy, stating it would be my word against theirs since they were fully clothed. I mocked her response, questioning her love for me. She assured me not to worry, but I countered by stating that I would bail out and that Dylan and Liam wouldn't press charges. I reminded Vanessa that Clay and Joyce had witnessed the 2 goons picking me up from work and escorting me inside. I accused her of having me brought there against my will and hindering me when I tried to leave. Despite her companion's failure, Vanessa then pulled out a weapon, pointing it straight at me. I told her that even if I spent a night in jail, once my witnesses testified, she would be the one facing charges, and I wouldn't be there to bail her out. I suggested that given the serious charges of kidnapping, false imprisonment, and threats with a weapon, her best option was to keep quiet. She ignored my advice and, along with her accomplices, concocted false stories leading to my arrest. The next morning, I called my friend Grant, explained everything, and asked him to work with Everett Sterling to gather evidence and take the necessary actions. Vanessa realized she couldn't get me out of jail until my court appearance, which was set for Monday. Luckily, Grant had a connection in the district attorney's office. He showed the assistant DA the footage of the incident, Dylan and Liam holding me down while Vanessa pointed a weapon at me. The ADA also heard Vanessa admitting her plan to lie and have her accomplices do the same. When Vanessa showed up at the courthouse for my bail hearing on Monday morning, she was arrested. Warrants were quickly issued for Dylan and Liam, and they were locked up by nightfall. I refused to post bail for Vanessa, and her parents couldn't afford it either. Vanessa's lawyer reached out, suggesting I use the house as collateral for her bond. I dismissed the idea outright and hung up. I checked out of the motel, moved back into my home, and had all the locks changed. Given Vanessa's threats, Grant secured a restraining order against her, ensuring she couldn't come within 100 feet of me if she managed to get out of jail. Despite the temptation to reconcile with Vanessa, I knew it wasn't worth the risk. Both Dylan and Liam turned on Vanessa and took plea deals. Vanessa claimed she never intended to shoot me, only to prevent me from harming Dylan or Liam badly enough to get myself jailed. The jury saw the footage and, despite her claims of love, believed she was trying to protect her accomplices. They acquitted her of the felony menacing charge but found her guilty of unlawful restraint, filing a false police report, and a few minor charges. The judge sentenced her to 9 months in county jail and 100 hours of community service upon release. During Vanessa's time in jail, the divorce process concluded smoothly. Besides losing Vanessa, I only had to give up 20 of the house's equity. I transferred the money to her bank account and headed to the bar next to the motel where I'd been staying. Fortune smiled upon me. Jenna and Kate were there, so I invited them to celebrate my newfound freedom. Emma wasn't around because her husband had returned from deployment and they were catching up. "Why celebrate with us?" Jenna asked. "Well, I have a hunch. I see Emma's wedding ring and Kate's too, but you, Jenna, aren't wearing one, and there's no mark suggesting you ever did, so I'm guessing there's no long-haul trucker in your life. Plus, I've always had a soft spot for gorgeous redheads. Kate laughed and teased. Girl, you've been caught.